The Owl House Season 2 Episode 15, Them's the Breaks Kid, came out this weekend, and as usual, it was another absolutely amazing episode. It's times like these I'm really glad I decided to start doing these separate in-depth reviews because there is a lot to cover with this episode, so why don't we just get right into it? The episode begins with Luz experimenting with different unfinished glyph combos from Philip's journal, and it's cool to see some of the spells that she knows now. Perhaps the most unsettling one is that Luz now knows how to petrify people, as we see when Beefy Bob disintegrates. I was initially confused to see Beefy Bob again because I assumed that he was destroyed with the other stuffed animals back in Season 1, Episode 12, but then I went back to check that episode and there's actually no evidence that he was destroyed, so I guess he was the only survivor. Only to be sentenced to a horrible death by petrification later, which I'm not sure if he was technically still alive after that, so, you know what, let's just not think about that. Luz also learns that weird arm spell that Belos apparently did back in the Season 1 finale, and I just love how King reacts here because he jumps back the way a cat would, but then he cleans himself off the way a dog would. Ida joins them outside and expresses concern over Luz still thinking about Philip after what they learned about him a few episodes ago, and we get another great bit of voice acting from Sarah Nicole Robles, who I hope I pronounced her name correctly this time. Ida decides to try cheering Luz up by offering to tell her a story, and Luz reacts exactly the way I did when I was watching the episode. We then flash back to the past and get to see a young Ida and Lilith on their way to school, and it was really cool to get to see them again and see what their friendship is like before everything went wrong. I also like that they actually gave Lilith a new voice actress this time for her younger self instead of just having her normal voice actress do it. At Hexside, we get to see even more future characters in their teenage years. We see what I believe are Basha's parents, possibly Gus's dad, and we see Alador, Odalia, and Darius. Up until now, we've only ever seen these two as rivals, but now here we see that they were actually really good friends, so I'm really curious to see what exactly happened between these two. We're then introduced to Bump's predecessor, Principal Faust, and get to see Bump when he was a vice principal. What I really love about Bump in this episode is that it's even more evidence that he's a great principal, educator, and that he really cares about these kids. He may be strict in the future, but we do see here that it could be much worse. Ida gets caught trying to sneak into Hexside, and there are so many fun references and callbacks riddled throughout these scenes. Lilith uses the secret passages that we eventually see the Troublemakers use in the first day back in Season 1, where Ida is known as Lord Calamity. Ida calls Bump Vice Princey B, which I think is actually what Luz called him back in the first day, so I just love all these examples about how similar Ida and Luz actually are. And when Ida sees her record, she says, "I thought there'd be more," in a very smug way. It's another callback to Season 1, Episode 9. But things quickly take a serious turn when Faust threatens to expel Ida and fire Bump unless she can bring back some blue ribbons from an If What convention designed for students to show off their talents. This had one of my favorite moments in the entire episode where Ida just blankly stares at Bump while squeezing the stress toy so much that it just pops into nothingness. They go inside and we get even more awesome details like Terra Snapdragon. Terra is such an interesting character for me because on the one hand, I love her character so much despite how evil she is. And I love that the show just keeps pushing what it can throw in, like calling the event Welcome to Heck. On a side note, I wonder if Terra did eventually make grinding people into multi-legal over the next 30 years. Maybe it's better not to think about it. We reach the halfway point of the episode where I'm sure we as a fandom collectively gasped in unison as we meet a young Rain Whispers. I've really liked Rain's character up until this point, but let me tell you, this episode solidified them as one of my favorite characters in the show. Ida and Rain are just so adorable and hilarious in every scene they share together, and honestly, they give Lumity some competition, which is saying something coming from me. After a really fun montage of seeing them work together, Terra decides to make things a bit more interesting with a game of Coven versus Wild. And yeah, I really love the irony of Ida having to be a Coven and Rain being a Wild given their future. This whole sequence was really fun and entertaining, and I love how it concludes with a fake out from Ida and Rain, similar to what Ida will eventually do in her match with Lilith in the Season 1 finale. We get another extremely adorable dance between them, which feels like a callback to the Lumity dance from Enchanting Grom Fright. And just when it seems like everything is over for them, it turns out that Terra finds them delightful. But I'm not gonna lie, Terra saying how much she likes Rain, given what we know she tries to do to them in the future, is really unsettling. But then right after this, we see that Terra Sarah was so impressed with Ida that she's going to talk to Principal Faust about both her and Bump. I actually really appreciate this moment because just like Darius a couple episodes ago with Hunter, it shows that even the evil or supposedly evil characters can have their redeeming moments. I also really love the fun bits of foreshadowing, like Bump giving Ida the idea to sell garbage at the night market, or Rain getting Ida hooked on apple blood. We then return to the present and get what is the biggest surprise in the whole episode, is that Rain has been faking their condition the entire time. This was such a brilliant and perfectly set up reveal. We get just a small moment in the past where Rain can change a drink's chemical composition just by whistling into it, and then we find out it was actually set up for this huge reveal later in the episode. And apparently back in Follies at the Coven Day Parade, you can actually hear Rain whistling before they drink their tea, so they were even setting it up a couple episodes ago. Just like I've been saying with the entire season, I really have to give these writers credit for how good a job they're doing. They're seamlessly weaving all these plot threads together, perfectly setting them up and executing them brilliantly. That's what I love the most about this episode, because good writing is in really short supply these days, especially with mainstream content. So whenever a team of writers can actually put in this much care to the story, I just love it. But we're not done yet, because a small little abomination delivers a letter revealing more details about Belos's plan, so now it is time to give some major speculation, observation, prediction, whatever about the rest of the season. So this moment seems to hint that Rain and Darius are working together, but if that is the case, how long have they been working together? Because it seemed like Rain was willing to kill Darius back in episode 7. Were they actually working together back then? Is that why Darius tried to send Kiki away by saying that they didn't need help? Were they enemies at that point and Darius just had a change of heart later when he found out the full extent of what Belos was planning to do? Warden Wrath did tell Ida that there were some who felt the New World Order wouldn't be very welcoming to witches, so maybe Darius is one of those people and decided to change sides and help Rain out. Or it's possible that Darius could have his own motivations and is simply willing to work with Rain for the time being as long as it suits him. Of course, that abomination could come from anybody who knows how to use abomination magic. It could have come from somebody like Alador, for example. But given the design of the abomination and that Rain is also a Coven head, I'm more inclined to believe that it's Darius. We also saw a couple episodes ago that there is actually more to Darius than we initially believed given his treatment of Hunter, so maybe he actually is a good guy this whole time. There's also a lot of information to break down about Belos's draining spell. It is mainly more clarification of things we already knew or at least suspected, but let's break down the basics of this spell. Step 1 is to gather all 9 covens at the Titan's head. Step 2 is to then wait for the eclipse to happen so that the magic can be drained from all 9 covens. The magic is going to go from the coven members to the heads to Belos, and then after that, some big spell is going to happen. Given how important the eclipse is, this clearly relates to the artifact that Philip found in the past and the Collector. So what exactly is Belos planning to do here? Well, obviously it's called the Day of Unity, and we know that it involves the human realm to some extent, so the obvious answer could be that he wants to unify the Boiling Isles and the human realm. But if that's the case, what is his endgame here? Is he simply trying to get rid of all magic and that's the only way to do it? Is he trying to destroy the Boiling Isles or the demon realm altogether? Is he trying to bring someone back to life like the Collector or his brother or the Titan? Does he just want to make himself unstoppable by absorbing all that power? Maybe he wants to give the Collector enough power to do something like reviving the Titan. I mean, capturing and transforming beasts does seem to be the Collector's specialty, so it doesn't seem like too much of a stretch. As usual, I love that we're getting more answers that also just lead to more questions. The note says that Belos is also planning to move the door somewhere else, probably a secret and more secure location.
But where? Where?
Rain is also informed that Ida is apparently the key to stopping this whole thing. Does this mean she could simply interfere with it using her corrupted magic like she and Raiden tried to do back in episode 7? It could also have to do with the Collector being responsible for Ida's curse. Maybe that gives them some kind of connection. Either way, my guess is that Ida would have to be sacrificed, which is clearly what Rain is afraid of. I really do hope that this isn't foreshadowing Ida's sacrifice. It's kind of starting to give me Gravity Falls series finale vibes, to be honest. past. Rain promises that they plan to keep Ida safe, which again makes me worry that both of them are gonna try to sacrifice themselves to save the other. So yeah, there are lots of different options for where this could be leading, but either way, it has me on the edge of my seat, desperate to know more. Guys, in the end, this was another amazing episode. I loved getting to take a break to learn more about Ida and Rain's past. For me, this is an extremely important episode because learning more about these characters' history and becoming more invested in them means we're going to care a lot more when things go down in the next few episodes. There were so many fun callbacks and references to previous episodes, a lot of hints at what's to come, and it was just really entertaining on its own. This season really does just get better and better with each episode, which makes me extremely excited to see how good the season finale is going to be. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. What did you think of this episode? What were your favorite moments? What are your new predictions and theories? And what are you looking forward to the most? Whatever it is, feel free to share your thoughts down in the comments and let me know what you think. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know as soon as I upload a new review. A very big thank you to all of my patrons, especially my fellow directors. Everybody's support goes a long way and you are greatly appreciated. As always, thank you so much for watching and I will see you for the Owl House Season 2, Episode 16.